Yesterday, I talked about how the public healthcare system is under pressure in Alberta and how that has far-reaching consequences in Canada, how creeping privatization and government overreach threatens the idea of universal access. Today, I want to talk about the future of education, and specifically the attempt to pass Bill 33 in Ontario, defined as the Supporting Children and Students Act, and how it may be just another step along that same slippery slope. Because if you allow one person to gain sweeping control over a public institution, the consequences can ripple far beyond what the headlines say. So what is Bill 33? According to news reports, it gives the province's education minister, Paul Calandra, the power to override school board decisions, remove trustees, and establish policy and guidelines even in boards that are reportedly financially sound, but where governance is deemed broken, by whatever government standard that term means. What's concerning is how the government is quietly fast-tracking this bill. They're skipping some public hearings and consultation steps to do it. And yes, there are legitimate issues. There are boards with scandalous spending and governance issues, etc., and they need addressing. But the question we must ask is, when the minister doesn't just correct a failing board, but gains authority to step in broadly, what does that mean for democratic oversight and local accountability? This ties back to my healthcare video because the pattern is similar. First, create a crisis or failure. Then, the government promises strong centralized intervention. Next, oversight is trimmed, local voices are sidelined, and the public system becomes more vulnerable to being replaced or reshaped. In healthcare, we're already seeing creeping privatization, contracting out, and private clinics taking over public roles, aren't we? In education, what if this is the permit for deeper restructuring of the entire school system? What if boards become weaker, accountability vanishes, and corporate or private interests fill the gap? Educators and unions are already sounding the alarm about this, saying, quote, "Trustees aren't perfect, but they can be questioned, challenged, and voted out. That's what democracy looks like." When you remove that layer, you remove a check on power. So here's the darker side of the innocent enough narrative. A law that seems geared to help by fixing failing boards can be the gateway to something else. It becomes easier for the government to standardize, centralize, and perhaps even privatize parts of the system. If you weaken the board's ability to resist, what happens when a board says, "We don't want X private operator in our schools," or "We don't want to cut teacher to student ratios even further"? Because once you've given the power to intervene in governance, you're also giving the power to reshape the very nature of the institution. And that's when public education starts to look less like a universal public good and more like a service subject to market logic. What's worse, Bill 33 takes power away from established boards, entire groups of people, often parent volunteers, and hands this power to one person, the education minister. So, who would you rather have a say in your child's education? Local parents like you with a vested interest in the school? Or some dude in Toronto with enough money who managed to get himself elected? So what can you do? First, you can stay informed, because this is not just about one board or one province. These power shifts are being tried everywhere. Second, you can ask questions. Who benefits from this change? Who will have less voice or fewer protections? Third, support local oversight. If school boards become toothless, you lose a layer of democracy and accountability. Next, connect the dots. If you care about public health care, you should care about public education. Both are foundational public services. When one falters, the other isn't likely far behind. And let's amplify the narratives of the communities most affected: students, teachers, parents in under-resourced schools. They'll feel the consequences first. This bill hasn't passed yet, but it's close. There may even be time to speak up about it. But either way, know this. Privatization doesn't always arrive in full armor. Often it creeps in through helpful legislation, quick votes, and promises to fix things. That's why we have to keep watching, keep asking questions, and hold power to account. Because if we lose public education the way we risk losing public health care, we all lose. If you found this helpful, like, share, and comment with what you think this means for your community. And I'll see you in the next one where we'll keep digging into these big shifts beneath the surface. But stay alert. Peace out. And if you're not already following me, you should. It's going to be a ride.